Good evening, everyone. Dave Mattson, Harrisburg City Council, Chair of Community and Economic Development. I want to welcome all of you to this town hall meeting to discuss the comprehensive plan. I see a lot of familiar faces. I haven't seen some of you in a long time, so it's so good to see you again, healthy, and I hope doing well if I haven't had a chance to talk to you yet. With me tonight is Councilwoman Danielle Bowers, the Chair of Building and Housing, Planning Director Jeffrey Knight, and Planning Commissioner Ann Merrick. Excuse me. So there's a couple of documents, just want to get everybody familiar with real quick. We do, upon request, have the actual comprehensive plan. It's a big document. It's a little tricky to print because it has such a big binder. We have our city clerk, Chardan Houston, in the back there. She has the same shirt as me. If you would like the hard copy, you can get it, meet with her, and she will organize a time for you to pick it up. We have a sort of summary version right here that highlights the bullet points of the plan. We have copies up front. If you have not received one and you're not familiar with the plan, I strongly encourage you to grab it and look over it. It just sort of goes over some of the highlights of the plan. And then the other document is the feedback sheet. So we have some boxes there in the back. There are pens. If there is something or some feedback you would like to provide and you haven't done so already, please fill out this form, submit it to us, and we will take and review your feedback once we are reviewing and editing the document. With that, I just want to highlight the purpose of tonight's meeting is really to hear from you, the community, to get your feedback on the plan and the process thus far. Mr. Knight's going to give an overview of the plan, the steps the city has taken to get this far into the plan. And from there, we just want to hear and get your input. And I will kick it to Councilwoman Bowers, who would like to give a welcome as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Mattson. Good evening, everyone. It's so nice to see you all in person. I look forward to our discussion this evening. Don't forget, there is another one next Wednesday at Italian Lake at 6. But I look forward to our discussion today, and thank you for your attendance.
And Commissioner Ann Merrick would like to give a brief statement on behalf of.
Thanks, Jeff. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming out this evening. And just on behalf of my fellow planning commissioners, I would just like to say, we really thank the public, and we know this has been a long process, and we, appreciate the continued engagement that you have provided us, throughout the course of this plan, and we're really looking forward to finally getting this thing off and running. So thank you.
And with that, I will provide a little bit of a brief overview of the document, the process, and the purpose as well. And so starting at the beginning, the process really kicked off in September of 2014 with the establishment of a steering committee that was designed to lay out an RFEI and RFP for consultants to bid on the opportunity process. And through that, a consultant team was selected, and throughout the most of the spring, summer, and fall of 2015, both planning commissioners, the planning bureau staff, and our steering committee members were out in the community at various points for National Night Out, attending neighborhood association meetings, attending block parties. Basically, if we were asked to be somewhere, we were there. And that was in addition to some of the formal parts of the process that we had, which involved 6 meetings at the beginning of that cycle, and then 6 meetings at the end, during which we both asked for ideas from the public about what to do, and then created concepts out of them that kind of brought all those ideas together, and then asked, how did we do it, combining all of these. And then in addition to those meetings, we had 3 formal kind of topical meetings. One was on transportation, and that was held at the train station. One was held on housing, and that was at the First Church of the Brethren on Hummel Street. And then there was a final one at the Harrisburg World Trade Center site at 1000 North Cameron Street, and that was at the end of the process in December. And through that process, we got a lot of good feedback from the public about the types of things that they wanted to see in the city, what they felt worked, what they felt did not. And those were all compiled into a document that was developed throughout the following years. And so through a process of both development of the document and then review of the document by planning commissioners, as well as following up with a copy editing session or phase of the process by which the document was kind of narrowed down, reformatted, and kind of simplified to make it a little bit easier for the public to engage with it and to kind of digest the information in it. We got to about mid-2020, and you'll notice on the planning document, if you've seen it online or if you've seen a hard copy version, there's a date of July 2020. So that's kind of when the final document that we're looking at today was completed. After that, the planning commissioners had a couple meetings in August and September to review aspects of the document, to kind of discuss maybe some slight tweaks to it. And then in mid-September, they had a special meeting at which they agreed to adopt the document and to present it to City Council. So that's the next step in the process. That's the process that's laid out in the municipality's planning code that the state has, kind of dictates how the whole process goes. Once it gets presented to City Council, then it's kind of in their court as far as how the process goes and what gets adopted and what gets included in from additional comments from the public, and that's why we're here today. There was a presentation at City Council in October of last year, and then in early spring, late winter, we had a couple of Zoom meetings. And at those Zoom meetings, we heard from the public that we needed to make sure that we were hearing all the voices and not just the ones who were able to attend a Zoom meeting, whether that's because you're not comfortable with internet and technology or you don't have the internet. You know, we needed to make sure that a broader net was being cast. And so tonight is the first of 2 in-person meetings that we'll be having. The next one will occur next Wednesday, same time, 6 o'clock at Italian Lake in North Harrisburg. So that kind of brings us to where we are today, and kind of going a little bit about what the document is. During the Zoom meetings that City Council held this winter and spring, there was maybe a little bit of confusion as to what the scope of the document is, with I think some people being a little concerned that maybe it was too aspirational or that there was too much of a focus on the aspirational aspects of the document. And just to be clear, the document is both practical and aspirational. That's the whole point of the name of Compehensive Plan. It's supposed to be holistic. It's supposed to cover a number of topics. Thank you, Momin. It's supposed to be holistic. It's supposed to be cover a number of topics, and it's supposed to have both short-term and long-term goals. So it covers everything from, decade-long projects that may require investment at the federal level, such as dechanneling Paxton Creek, to something as immediate and local as what kind of public art we want to see. And maybe some people here have seen some of what Sprocket Mural has done in coordination with Tri-County Community Action, where they've been putting in some planter boxes along Dairy Street and Market Street. So all of that is kind of covered under the umbrella of what this plan is. Also, this plan is kind of designed to be overarching, but it doesn't get down to really the granular level, the nitty-gritty. A lot of times that is done by documents that will come out of this process. So we will be following up this process with a zoning code, and the zoning code is the legal document that implements these things. So the zoning code is where you see things like building heights and setbacks and uses, throughout the city, and that's how we have the zoning map that has different zoning designations. That is not what this document is. This document is meant to guide something like that, but it is not the same thing. So this document will not say, a park needs to go at 123 Main Street. This document will talk about how we need to make park resources more accessible, and then eventual projects, whether they're like zoning code, whether it's city council budgets, whether it is policies that the city adopts, will then implement those on a more neighborhood-focused level. So this document, again, is overarching. It covers a lot of topics, but it's meant to create a vision that other documents that come after this will work towards. So just to kind of give everybody an idea of exactly like what this document is and what it does. And I think with that, we've got a pretty good overview of where we're at here, how we got here, and what the document does. And I will hand it back to Dave.
Okay, thank you for that, Jeff. Just want to acknowledge my colleague, Westburn Majors, Chair of Public Works Committee. With that, it's pretty straightforward. At this point, we'd like to hear from you, the public. So if you'd like, come to the mic and give us your feedback, comments. Do not be shy. I know a number of you, we've had lengthy conversations about the plan. There you go.
Hi, my name is Ron Johnson. I live at 1847 Zarker Street. Now, I've been around a long time. Even remember 2014 sitting on all these committees when I was up and able to do it. And I knew there was going to be a demographic that was going to be the sacrificial lamb to speak. But every community in this city, from south to north and from east to west, are feeling like we all are the sacrificial lambs. We're having to fend for ourselves. When we call the police, there's barely a response. We're undergoing all types of shootings. We own our properties too. And I think it's unfair that we have to put up with all of this. This doesn't make any sense. And I'm a bug. I do not go away. So I will continue to be attending these meetings and pulling you up on this stuff.
Thank you for that. Is there anyone else? Oh,
That's all right, go ahead.
Good evening.
sorry. Go ahead, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Rhoda Howard, and I live on Park Street. I have several concerns. The main, right now, because I know we're short of time, the noise ordinance that's already implemented, and I know things can be added, but right now, it's almost as if that doesn't exist. In my block, we are calling every week, 3 times, sometimes 4 times a week, into the policing, just to have them to come over and let the neighbors know the noise is extremely loud. Sometimes they come, but most of the time they don't. 2 weeks ago, they received 8 calls from our block, starting at 9:30 in the evening. They did not come until midnight. So during that 2.5 hours, we had to endure the loud music. And it's always the same houses. You can check the logbook and see how many times we've been calling and nothing is being done. Now, back in the day when there were numerous taverns with the noise ordinance and all the other things that were going on, they were shut down. This needs to be addressed as soon as possible. Because I also know what the ordinance is. If the police comes to a resident's home 3 times and they're ready, the city can make the move. It's already happened on our block. So this needs to be addressed. My second concern is our street lights have been out for over a month. This is absurd. We pay taxes. This is not a free service. That needs to be addressed. We have called, left messages, they're still out. And then lastly, with the dispatching, when we call for assistance, there needs to be cross-training. cross-training. Sometimes they're unprofessional, and the last time I spoke, and I have the numbers, their ID numbers, about the noise ordinance, about the third time I called, she was like, well, we give the information, and it's up to the police if they choose to come. I said, wait a minute. I'm a taxpayer and a homeowner. Someone needs to come and address this. So if we need to meet, we can, but it needs to be addressed.
Thank you for that. Thank you for the feedback so far. Appreciate, Jeff, does the plan go over public safety per se? Because that seems what the theme has been in the last few comments.
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about that. One of the ways in which the plan is meant to address public safety is to have more precincts or substations out in the community, and that's meant to have police be not just responding from downtown always, because a lot of times, if the police are downtown, by the time they get out to wherever a call is, whatever the issue has moved on, or perhaps they're not able to catch the people that are doing it. Now, I can't speak to if there's multiple comments about a single property and whether that gets addressed. That would be something, the police chief would have to respond to. But as to how the plan would address it, it would work to shorten those response times. And then to your point about the noise ordinances, like a noise ordinance is one of those documents that could follow up on this. So if we're looking at maybe we want to have like quiet zones in some areas, or we want to concentrate things like a bar or something like that in along certain streets that they're not kind of throughout the neighborhood, that would be one way that this document could address some of those issues.
Thank you. Actually, when folks signed in, and I missed this part, there was a list for who signed up for public comments. We want to stick to that. Sorry about that.
But I was standing.
Okay.
I'll stand up.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sure folks.
All right, if I can beg everyone's indulgence for a brief moment, just to respond briefly to what you said about what can happen. One of the challenges is you can have as many ordinances, you can have 1 million, or you can have 2. The question is whether or not, and this is to council, and we've talked about this, whether or not what is on the books is actually, enacted, is actually deployed, enforced. And that, and so the biggest, in my view, the biggest challenge we have right now is, there are many, but certainly one of the largest is when you have an ordinance, you gotta be able to, if you don't enforce it, then you've let everyone know that it's meaningless, right? And so, we all have all kinds of expressions that convey that. So when I'm traveling on Market Street in the morning and it says, and it's a 25 mile per hour speed limit and everyone's going 40 and it's never enforced, it doesn't matter. We, as a community, as a city, as a municipality, have to decide culturally, that's culture, whether or not we are going to enforce what it is that we say is important. Right now, we're losing. Thank you. Am I right? Okay.
Thank you for that. All right. First, for the on the public comments sign-in sheet is Linda Carmack? K-Mac, excuse me. Carmack, excuse me.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Linda Carmack. I live at 1104 North 16th Street, and I've resided there for the past 63 years. I had an issue, and finally I get to see you in person, Mr. Knight, that I sent you numerous emails regarding the house next door to me that was being turned into a drug and alcohol rehab house. I've been on this for the past 3 years by myself. I refuse to allow that in my neighborhood where I grew up. It was never addressed. I stayed on them, and finally, thank God, they sold the house to someone, but it wasn't by the help of the city. I stayed, they got tired of me watching them, because I don't go away. But there are other people who come into the city, they buy these homes, they turn them into drug and alcohol rehab places. You have all kind of people going in and out, in and out, in and out. I don't roll like that. Once 11 o'clock, the news is on my block, everything is shut down. It's just the way it is. My second thing are trees. I have this humongous oak tree in front of my house. I guess when they planted it, they didn't think it was going to grow. I can't even open my passenger side door because, and I have a handicap parking space, I have to park back as far to the rear of the second sign that I can so that I can do that, open my door. It was once upon a time the trees were being addressed and the maintenance was kept up by the Department of Parks and Recreation. I don't know what has happened. It has fallen on deaf ears. That tree has not been pruned or cut forever. The roots are now uplifting my sidewalk, and the roots are now have reached to the foundation of my home. That's all on me. I went to plant a rose bush, and I kept digging and digging. I'm like, what is this? Big old tree root that I had to take a saw and cut in order to plant my rose bush. So those are some things, and I understand that I'm a senior citizen. I understand there are monies available for tree maintenance or tree removal. The arborist came out to my house, didn't come to my house, she came out to the tree and made her assumption that the tree was beautiful, it was not a bad tree, and all this other stuff, but yet I'm still having these root problems. So I'm not going to allow that to go on deaf ears either. I'm not going away. I'm like Mr. Johnson. I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you for that. So one aspect that the plan touches on, like Mr. Knight gave his overview, and this is really going to be critical as we start planning for the city, is the zoning. The zoning determines the types of housing that happen in the neighborhoods. I think, and thank you for that feedback, we need to take a hard look at some of the zoning and the housing and the rules and regs and what they allow in certain neighborhoods.
That entire street is residential.
Okay.
It is not zone commercial whatsoever.
Okay. Thank you. I was just giving a bird's eye view of the problem. And the other piece when it comes to the trees, Mr. Baker in the back does work on some of our trees. He can assist you with some of the issues with trees. Okay. Well, if you're having a particular issue, let us know. We'll be sticking around afterwards, and we'll work with you on resolving it. And I don't know, Mr. Knight, does the plan, do you have any to the zoning and or trees?
Yeah, well, so with respect to the zoning, that does, I think, kind of what it sounds like, and I do recall this particular property. It's a supportive housing family use, and that allows people with a disability, and the federal government defined drug and alcohol as a disability, so that's why it's permitted under our current zoning code. But to Councilman Madsen's point, under a future zoning code, it could be redefined as, or we could define what our zoning districts are and what uses are permitted in which district. And so that's something that would come out of a zoning code that would implement this. And if what we're hearing from the public, and we do hear this, is, I would like less disruptive residentially based uses in the neighborhood, then that's something we would do in that zoning code update, is to not allow those in the same types of districts where you have other single family or duplex homes.
And I just want to add, if you're having a particular constituent issue tonight, I'm going to stick around to hear what those are, if it's a particular tree to your house. But I would like the comments, if we could keep it to the plan and overall issue. It's okay to bring up a concern or a personal story of an issue you may have had, but just moving forward, if we could focus on the plan, and if you have a particular issue you need our assistance with, we'll be sticking around to help you with that. Okay. Next, we have Crystal Davis.
and I live at 1425 Regina Street. I am concerned about the parking on the sidewalks in the city. I've never seen so many people parking on the sidewalks in the city. I'm concerned about our seniors, our elderly, handicapped, not being able to come out of their homes in their wheelchairs without having to, safely go in the streets. 18th and Park is an area where people just park on the street, on the sidewalks, and I don't understand. I'm from Harrisburg, born and raised, and the street is where we park. So I take it that there's nobody here from public safety tonight? And there's hi. Quite a few concerns in reference to public safety, but yeah, that's just one of my comments tonight. Thank you.
Yeah, and whatever issue you're having, if there's not a city representative that specifically focuses on that, we will help you and assist you. We're well aware of who you would work with, and we'll coordinate with you on that issue. Thank you. I'm having trouble reading the next name, so I'm going to read out the address. It's 1833 State Street. And I just want to acknowledge my other colleague, Asha Green, who is chair of Public Safety Committee.
Good evening. My name is Evelyn Hunt, and I have a number of issues, but when I think of the comprehensive plan, I don't know if any of you remember this, but years ago, around November, Sears used to send out a Christmas wish book. And we marked all the things that we wanted. And if any of you remember this book had things we wanted, not things we needed. And it would be nice to have a lot of the things that are in the comprehensive plan. But I know in my neighborhood, I invited 4 city officials to come take a walk with me in my neighborhood. One came. I had to show the city official where we don't have sidewalks, where we don't have curbing. And I thought it was a little comical. The one area that I showed him, I'm walking in the street, and he was afraid to walk in the street. He was walking up on the grass. This was up at 20th and State. At that curve, the sidewalk stops. And you've literally got to get into the street, and you've got these cars coming around that curve at record-breaking speed. Now, I know how to maneuver that because I've been living there since 1962. But this city official wasn't about to get in that street and walk there with those cars coming around that curve. And one of the major problems we have is on Walnut Street, from 18th in Walnut to where the city ends. There's no sidewalks. You tell me, well, you can walk in the park. There's a sidewalk up in the park. Well, guess what? You can walk in the park at night. I'm not walking in the park at night. And most people walk in the street. That's unacceptable. And if you come up with a bright idea, well, we're going to limit parking to one side of the street. Oh, no, you're not going to do that, because we've got too many businesses and too many people who have cars. We need both sides of that street for parking. My suggestion is cut a little bit of Reservoir Park away and let people park and put a sidewalk there. I have a picture on my camera. When I took this public official with me, I showed them the most popular entrance into the park from the Walnut Street side is a dirt path. It's not the steps. The steps are not at the place where most people enter into the park. And another problem that I have is normally I will call up to Parks and Rec and kindly remind them it's time to cut the grass. I don't know why they can cut the grass in the rest of the park, but from that 18th up until where you can see it from State Street, closer to the playground, that grass is at least 3 feet high right now. That's unacceptable. How do you expect codes to come and tell someone to cut their grass when the city isn't even cutting the grass that they're responsible for? Down at the end of 18th Street, where we have what we call our roundabout. It's not a roundabout, it's a triangle, but we got it. We've used it for years, and it's worked wonderfully. We have the paved bricks, but half of them are coming up. And I know that road is bad, but I forget it's bad until I actually drive on there and then take the city's name in vain. I have pictures of all of this in case you want to see it. Okay, let's see. The other issue that we have is we don't have enough police enforcement up in that neighborhood. I also have pictures on my camera, which I can show you, of the bullet holes in the building. When I come home late in the evening or early in the morning, my family feels, call us so we can make sure you get into the house safely. Or in the summertime, the neighbors are out, they'll watch to make sure I get into my house safely. We have a drug issue up in that neighborhood, and we don't have enough police monitoring that area, so they feel very comfortable up there. Okay. Oh, Apricot Alley. We call that, when it rains, the Finger Lakes of Apricot Alley. Because you know, and I saw something on one of your programs about potholes, whether they're 2 inches or 3 inches. No, we don't have 2, 3 inches. We've got holes. And every year, Public Works comes and they try to patch up those holes. Well, we've got more patch than we have roads. That needs to be handled. The other problem that we have on these streets in Harrisburg are there's no enforcement of speed, first of all. Then there's no enforcement of people being parked too close to the corners. There's no enforcement of people being at fire hydrants. I've got pictures of those too. We don't enforce. Now, when I drive through Pembroke, I like to put my car in neutral and hope that the wind isn't on my backside, because I know those police in Pembroke enforce speed. I know those police in Stilton enforce speed. We need to deal with some enforcement in this city of Harrisburg. And then when you do call for the police, I don't know if this is a city issue or whether this is a county issue. I mean, they want everything but your blood type when you are calling to get the police to come and deal with an issue. You know, it's like, well, is there any blood? How many people? I'm not doing your job. You get them up here. Or you can make me feel a little better while you're questioning me. Tell me at least that you're sending someone. That's a big issue. And if you don't say there's blood, they're not going to rush. Okay. The other, this plan, I'm old. I know gray is the new in color. And everybody is printing everything in light gray. That is hard to read. I went on the computer to look this up, and because I was going to read it, I said, oh, no, these old eyes cannot read that. First of all, it's small and it's too light. That does not encourage us to try to read it. Use some dark ink. And the other question I have is there something that I can hit on the computer to tell it, to make it bigger so I can read it?
We can work with you afterwards with our tech person on those particular issues. But we do have a lot of other folks on the list we'd like to get to, so.
But wait, no, I haven't gotten to the main point yet.
Okay,
Oh,
I'm
no, darling, These people really want to hear what I have to say. Don't y'all? Yeah, okay.
All right, yeah.
Yeah, you invited me. You're not kicking me out of the
No,
party.
we-
Okay, now, and look, you haven't heard from me for over a year. Be patient. You may not be the person who, the city may not be the person who is responsible for this. And understand me, Governor Wolf will be hearing from me, and the Secretary of Transportation will also be hearing from me behind this foolish plan for what they are talking about doing to State Street. We, the people who live on State Street, we, the people who pay taxes on State Street, are not inclined to be inconvenienced to help people who don't pay taxes, who come into Harrisburg to work, to get in quickly and get out quickly. This ridiculous idea that PennDOT came up with, that they think if they make State Street one lane, but in the morning it's 2 lanes, and old folks like me, you expect me to get up at 6:30 in the morning and go move my car so somebody in the suburbs can get into the city of Harrisburg faster? No. And then in addition to that, all of these people who live on State Street, because we have a lot of single homes and we have a lot of apartments, you're talking about 2 to 3 cars per building. When I hear you talking about improvements downtown, about them taking these office buildings and making apartments and housing and stuff, I hear City Hall, the council people talking about where are the people going to park. Okay, I want to know, where are we going to park, or what are we supposed to do for 2 hours while these people are going in the city and out of the city? And I know bike lanes are the new popular thing, but we don't want, nor do we need, any bike lanes up on State Street. We don't have the need for it. The only thing we have as far as bike needs for State Street is maybe a dirt path for all of those dirt bikes that are going up and down there, bothering the mess out of us. No. And then this ridiculous idea that they have about putting the bike lane, then the car lane here. We are already having a lot of problems now because people cannot see to get out on State Street where there's where we don't have lights. Because we don't have the enforcement of people parking too close to the corners. We don't have signage up there saying don't park here. So people have trouble seeing to get out on State Street. But yes, the governor and the Secretary of PennDOT will be hearing from me, and if they go ahead with this foolish plan, they're going to be hearing from a lot of people on State Street because they really don't realize what this bad plan is going to have to do with them. And then the other thing, as far as the city's concerned, the city can't right now enforce street cleaning, parking. How are they going to enforce this kind of parking when the city doesn't have people ticketing at 6:30 in the morning? The city doesn't have people ticketing at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So, I mean, whoever thought about this didn't think long or hard. Thank you.
Thank you. So part of what we have to think about as we're planning the city's future is automobiles and how people are going to get to and from work. We obviously know from this past year that was a large part of the conversation. We don't know what all this telework means for communities like ours, but it is something, that's what we hear from constituent a lot, is the lack of parking, not being able to find parking. It's something we're very aware of, and I don't know if Mr. Knight, if there's anything to add on parking that the plan touches on.
Well, I think, as you said, the telework may change it, because I know one of the things we hear, especially from people just on the east side of Mulberry Street Bridge, Straight Street Bridge area, is that the state workers come there and park on the street and take up the spots for residents, and maybe that changes if the state goes to more telework. But I think what it means from the perspective of this plan is probably kind of twofold, is we need to be looking for more centralized parking so that we can find a solution where we can say, all right, let's look at maybe having a parking structure, a parking lot in this central area so that we do have parking for both existing residents and new residents who eventually come to our city, but also to look at what solutions we have from a multimodal perspective. I know one of the big issues, and we've heard this in our planning commission and zoning hearing board meetings, is we have people say, well, we're going to be doing apartments and there are bus routes nearby. But as a lot of people know, CAT doesn't really run at night. It doesn't really run on the weekends. And so from the city's perspective, what can we do to maybe enhance that? What can we do to work with CAT to say, we need expanded hours of operation. This can't just be a commuter system that brings people in the morning and takes people out in the afternoon. It needs to be kind of an all-day, weekend system. And in addition to that, we need to look at making sure we can be providing the services that our residents need nearby, so that we don't always have to get in a car to go to every thing we want to do, whether it's to go shopping, whether it's to go to laundry, childcare, go get a cup of coffee. So that kind of folds into the kind of relationship between transportation and land use, which again kind of speaks to that zoning code that will eventually come out of this, is what kind of uses do we want at different parts here in different areas of the city.
Thank you for that. And another thing I'd like to add when we're thinking about parking enforcement is our contract with SB Plus, which was negotiated during the receivership process, which is a long way to go with that contract still. Another topic that's been coming up a lot, and I want to just do a quick plug for the end of the year, is when we do our budget hearings, where we work with the administration on the budget and try to figure out what those priorities are. Part of the problem the city has is that we have limited resources because we have a limited tax base. Our median income is roughly $33,000 a year. 50 to 55% of our land is non-taxable. There's some benefits to hosting the state, right? But part of the problem is they don't pay taxes. And as a result, as well, you have a lot of nonprofits, a lot of churches that want to be located in the capital city to have access to legislators, but that also dips into your tax base. We're a little bit unique in that way, and it's a big challenge. We do have a lobbyist on retainer where we advocate for more resources. We do get some money from the state, I would argue not enough, and if you compare to other capital cities, it's not as much as some receive there. But a topic we're going to continue to have to deal with until we can find some other additional revenue resources is going to probably be the scalability and, yeah, so. And by the way, my colleagues can add anything if they'd like at any time as well. So. Mr. Major?
I'll just take this off. Sorry. And good evening, everybody. And to my councilman's point, I think all of those are valid points, but the other thing that we need to also be thinking about, and I'll keep saying it until we get an opportunity to work with the administration, is our city, our county, our state are all in a position now we are in a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity with the American Rescue Plan. The city of Harrisburg over the next 2 years will be receiving on its own $47 million from the federal government that we can use to do a lot of different quality of life improvements addressing our response as we're coming out of COVID-19. So we're going to need your input as we move forward with this. A lot of this will be able to tie into some of the ideas that we have in the comprehensive plan, but we're going to have to look at what some of those short-term solutions are that could have lasting impacts. So this is the first of 2 of these meetings on the comp plan. I'm hoping that working with President Williams and the administration will be able to have more discussions about using these dollars moving forward that can address some of the issues that we know are ailing our community, particularly dealing with our infrastructure and affordable housing. So you will hear more from us. I'm glad that we're all in person now. And as we said earlier, many of us will be sticking around later to address some of the specific issues, quality of life issues and concerns that we deal with on a daily basis. But as we're, working through this, trying to address the issues that we're going to look at the comp plan, because at some point, this draft plan is going to have to turn into something that actually gets adopted by city council, and then we're going to have to work on some of those 1, 3, 5-year actual working documents, as Mr. Knight was pointing out about the zoning code and other pieces, to put parts of these plans in action. And I think you probably already know that at the beginning. It's been over 40 years since the city has done anything at this scale in terms of trying to plan for our future in a massive way. So we appreciate everyone's feedback, and we look forward to continuing to work with you. But this is going to be a work in progress, and this document isn't going to be static. It's going to be a living document, so we can work and change it as we're going through, and it's going to last for not just this council, but for councils to come.
Okay. The next constituent on the list is a Rodas? Oh, sorry, bear with us. Some folks are signing their names. Rhonda Green? 18579. Can't read the street. Oh, okay, all right. Terry Ambush? Thank you.
Hi, reside at 2032 Bellevue Road, Harrisburg. I have 3 things. One is for Public Works. Can y'all please cut that grass up there off of 17th and the bypass, that corner lot? It's going to, because when you come around off the bypass, somebody got to cut that grass. And also them side of the trees and stuff. And I know the city used to do it. Another thing too is these tractor trailers. Y'all want to sit up there and enforce something. Y'all need to enforce these tractor trailers on these roads. Because I tell you what, when Reed was mayor, you didn't see a tractor trailer in the city. This city is horrible with tractor trailers. I'm telling you, I don't get it. Plus, this one more thing. I've been trying to get a light in back of my house in the alley. It's only one light back there, because it's the main breaker, because of the noise ordinance and also the shooting. I mean, really, for real. I would love to have a camera back on that telephone pole and a good light. Oh, and one more thing, like she said, the bypass, Public Works again. The park, bricks is coming out. Can you please get that fixed? Parks and Recs.
It's very serious.
Yes.
It's very serious.
Yeah. And also, y'all need to put a sign. A sign needs to actually be right there off of Walnut, because people are actually coming through the one way. Really is. And I believe that's it.
Okay.
But, yeah, thank you.
Okay. Thank you for that. Next, we have a Wilmer Henninger.
Had a very well-crafted crafted 3-minute and 10-second speech, but Jeff's introduction calmed me down a little bit with one of my concerns, which was, what's next? This is an expensive, long, well-crafted plan, but then what?
Can you step a little closer to the mic?
Sorry. I've read many comp plans before and then seen them dusty on a shelf. There's no follow-up. I think my recommendation to council and staff and the elected officials is get on with it. It could be 10 times the cost of this plan to implement the recommendations and the goals, but that's necessary. We've heard about things that are not followed up, noise and graffiti and all kinds of stuff. The city is not being enforced. We have regulations, we have laws, we have ideals, goals, and they're not followed up properly. I want to give an example. The previous mayor had an idea that certain roads coming into the city were going to be gateway roads, and they would be appealing and attractive for visitors and so on to come into the city. Well, that's almost 20 years ago. And yet today, looking at 7th Street and Cameron Street, they're digging up the sidewalks. That's the time to put the wires down. On both sides, they could have put that in. The plan says the engineer coordinates with PP&L. There's been no coordination. And that opportunity was wasted. It could have been done for minimum cost. Now it's going to be very expensive. And until it's done, we have these ugly streets. So again, I encourage council to support and fund almost as fast as we can this very wide effort to implement the plan.
Thank you for that. And just want to do another quick plug for when we have the budget hearings at the end of the year, because that's what we're going to have to do once the plan is approved, is to figure out how we're going to allocate the funds that we have. We won't be able to do all of it. We'll be able to do some of it. So we really want your input during that time period. So once we get a little closer to the end of the year, we will be promoting it and encourage everyone to come out for those budget hearings at that time. 445 Crescent Street. Sorry, I couldn't read your name.
How you guys doing? I agree with the young lady saying about the police issue. My thing is, I agree with her. I live over on Crescent Street, and if you go to 13th and Kinnatini, that's a hot spot. And we know they're not selling Girl Scout cookies. In that area, around my area, there's not one officer that comes by there. Not a one. The two that do, one was Officer Fenton. They came through there. They used to patrol all the time. If you call the comm center, like she said, you better be dying. Because they want to know your life history, what's going on, what's your blood type. Second thing is, there's nothing in this city for these kids to do. I've coached football and baseball for 25 years. We've had 4 baseball fields. The only man that did anything for the city with the baseball, he retired, was Aaron. That Mosop League, the city did not back. He did everything. There's a field uptown where I played at Italian League that's trashed. Why can't we fix Italian League? Why can't we fix 29th and Rudy Road? The school district had to kiss behind to get their field. I coach baseball. I mean, realistically. Then you wonder why we have kids getting killed. They have nothing to do. We have 2 swimming pools, none of them open. Hall Manor, the one uptown. I got to go swimming. I got to take my kids to Lemoyne and pay $12 a swim. Really? I mean, we got to do something. There's nothing for kids. And then you wonder why the kids are going to jail, or they're selling drugs, or nothing's going on. And the third thing is, why do these, and this is dear to my heart because he's playing pro football, that I've coached, everybody that goes to the NFL, and I'm going to use this young man as an example, Micah, when he was down at HVAC, Pappy Foods used him as a pawn. Here's the kids of the city. I'll see you guys later. He was there exactly 5 minutes. Gave Micah the key. When everybody wanted to talk to him, he's out the back door. See you later, bye. He's so worried about downtown. When he was running for mayor, he was on the Hill. Hi, everybody, da-da-da-da-da-da. I didn't see one delegate in my neighborhood, except for one person that was going to name anonymous, that was in my neighborhood, that he cares about the city and the kids more than anybody. And I think we all know who that is. And he is definitely here. And he has my support and my backing. And we know who he is. He is the only one that I know. There's two people. They care about the kids more than anybody in the city. And that's wrong. These little kids are running around with nothing to do at all. At all. Really? That's all I have to say about the kids. It's the kids.
Thank you for that. And, just want to do a quick plug because you mentioned a few things. Elections do have consequences, and I think this last election really showed who, was out there doing the work and engaging the constituents the way they needed to. So that's all I'll say about that. But I will let Mr. Knight talk a little bit about the plan and its reference on Parks and Rec and activities for constituents.
Yeah, and that is one of the big themes we heard during the public engagement. Is they heard a lot from people. Yeah, you've got playgrounds, you've got stuff for kids to do, but what do kids do when they get older, when they're teens, when they're young adults? And so, one of the things that the plan looks at is what types of activities are there to do? Like, how can we expand those? And I think that kind of gets rolled into the equitable access of parks, like looking at where we have park deserts, and then when we create new parks, what do those parks have in them? And I think that's one of those situations where a follow-up document, a plan for a park somewhere, wherever that may be, can look at what do we put into this park, this new development that will attract and will provide activities for teens and young adults. So that's something where the document as a whole says we need to focus on this. When we start redoing parks, when we look at where we're going to put new parks, let's look to incorporate some of these things. But that at the granular level, when you're talking about specific parks, that will come down to a community conversation to say to the people in the neighborhood around that park, what do you want to see in this once we build this? And so the document has a vision, but that is really implemented by a follow-up plan for that park. One of the things with respect to the pools that the plan proposes is splash pads. And the reason it does that is because pools are pretty expensive to maintain on an annual basis, and it's oftentimes cheaper to have a splash pad, and so we can do more of those with the same amount of money. So instead of having two pools where maybe they're open, maybe they're not, maybe there's a crack in the foundation of one, we can maybe have 3 or 4 splash pads for that same price throughout the neighborhood, throughout the city, so that they're not just in those 2 places. And that kind of speaks to what Councilman Madsen was saying about the resources, is we need to make sure that we're doing the most with the resources, and would it be better to have 4 locations as opposed to 2 locations? So those are 2 different aspects of that.
We're very aware of the bike issue.
No, my question is, can you find a home for them? Is there any place we can put them? Is it in the plan?
Yeah.
So currently, there is no, in the current plan, there is not a place for ATVs, dirt bikes. It's something that I know I've personally had some discussions with other communities that are dealing with this. This is not a Harrisburg-specific issue. Communities across the country, particularly urban communities, are dealing with it. Several communities are trying to find solutions on how to address it. So it's being able to find a plot of land that is large enough to be able to accommodate that, and also more than likely a third-party vendor that will operate it. Everyone that I have looked at thus far in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania is not operated by a municipality at all. So the municipality will lease land to a third-party entity, allow them to do the operation of that. I'm actually talking to the city of Cleveland, Ohio, which is doing an exploratory committee to discuss, urban area ATV parks. So we know this is an issue that we're all dealing with. We all want to address it just as much as you do. I think sometimes, we're all city residents as well, right? So we experience all the same issues that you're experiencing. So that's hopefully something that we'll be able to address. And again, this document is still in draft form, so these are things that we can hopefully take into consideration as we move forward.
Thank you. All right, move on to the next constituent. We have Joshua Barker. I saw him earlier. We'll come back if he's maybe using the bathroom. Rob Lawson? I think you already spoke. Yeah. Oh.
All right, I wasn't sure that I put my name on to speak or ask a question, but one question that I did have is I do see as far as economic development, I've been speaking to a lot of young aspiring entrepreneurs, and I know right now that you do have like microloan programs, but how do we expand that and get more of these businesses from either being babies or being concepts into becoming reality? Because a lot of these companies are really going to be able to push us over the line, and they also may help get to some of the problem, because I think a lot of our problem, as you said before, is resources. So the more businesses we have in the city, the more resources that we have to spread around. So how can we help invest in some of our people that we have here now that have great creative ideas and help them to develop their products?
Yeah. One thing I'll touch on is just to piggyback off Councilman Major's points. I think this is where there's a great opportunity with the ARP, or American Rescue Plan dollars, to allocate grants. We did do some of that with some resources through Impact Harrisburg to support small businesses that were right on the cusp. We want to make sure that we can, as we recover, that we support our small businesses, because those are going to be our local job creators as well. And they also can help with mitigating some other issues, because they tend to, as they grow, purchase properties and rehab them. We've seen a few do that in certain areas. But yeah, the other thing is we do have a lot of incubator spaces as well that can help and support small businesses. We have La Cultura, we have the Broad Street Market. There are some tech incubators that exist through HU and the city as well. But any and all opportunities we have to support entrepreneurship through the ARP dollars is something we'll be looking at. And then I'll leave it to Mr. Knight if there's any references to entrepreneurship or small business in the plan.
I think you kind of covered a good part of it in terms of the resources allocated in the annual budget as to what we're supporting. But to your other point about the incubator space, we have a lot of vacant buildings here in the city. And a lot of those, instead of being vacant and perhaps blighting influences on their neighborhoods, can be turned into something where they can house a business, they can house an entrepreneur. My department reviews mercantile permits, and we've seen a lot more. I've actually been really surprised at how many we've seen over the last year and a half through this, and we've seen a lot more home occupations. We've seen a lot of people who may have been laid off or furloughed or something, saying to themselves, you know what, I'm going to start investing in myself, and I'm going to start a business myself. And how do we, as the city, help do that? And one is, as Councilman Madsen said, through the resources that we appropriate in the budget. And two can be through finding locations for these businesses, because maybe their home doesn't quite work for what they want to do. Maybe they have some machining or something. But we have a lot of industrial buildings, vacant industrial buildings in the along the railroad tracks, especially both in Allison Hill and in the Cameron Street corridor. And again, they're sitting vacant, and they're not helping either their neighborhoods that they're in or the potential businesses that could be in those. And so we need to find a way to work with those property owners to incentivize them to open up their doors to give houses and homes for the businesses that our residents are working on creating right now.
Thank you. We'll wait, we'll open it up after we finish the list for follow-up questions. And then, like I said, we'll be sticking around afterwards as well. All right, having trouble reading the next one, but 3022 North 3rd Street. Yeah, I saw.
Okay, just want to make sure. Okay. Hi, my name is Brandon Basom. I live in Uptown on the 3000 block of 3rd Street. I do not like cameras or microphones, so excuse me if I stutter. I'm not fond of these. First of all, I wanted to say, so far as a comprehensive plan, getting it passed and getting it underway, I think the time is now. As you mentioned, we're set to receive an enormous amount of funds from the federal government, and we have an opportunity to do things that we've been talking about and honestly haven't gotten done, but I mean, we can take major steps, and I think making sure that when that money comes in, it gets put to things that help the entire community, as opposed to, you know, major developers, which tended to be beneficiaries under other administrations, would be important. I heard a lot of people talking about lack of public safety response. I think that our move, there's a lot of talk, and I agree with it, that we need maybe some non-police, non-violent public safety. We know that we can't fill our complement of officers. There's, I'm sure, many reasons for that, but the main thing is we know we can't. I think being able to hire different people to handle some of these problems who aren't necessarily armed police, who won't be necessarily approach people in a confrontational policing manner, might be of some use. And again, we have the money allotted to the police in the budget to do that with. I would suggest that we not put them under the police, because I don't think that you can be separate from the police while under them. I think you become part of the culture, and we have a lot of the same problems then. So, another thing when it comes to some of the complaints, we talked about speeding, we've talked about, you know, reckless driving, we've talked about, especially with commuters, thinking that a lot of these roads, 2nd Street, you know, Front Street, State Street, are their own personal, you know, super highways, and not acknowledging that people live there. I don't know that, I think studies have shown that selective police enforcement doesn't work. People never think it's going to be them. There are ways to address this. One is structural changes, like road diets and other things that calm traffic. Another is, there's a study I just read, I can't remember the source, but we're putting up cameras around the city to monitor traffic and ticket people who are speeding. Does slow traffic, because if you're hit consistently every time you do it, it works. If you just have to worry about the one time a cop catches you, you risk it. I mean, I'm 40 years old. When I was younger, I did. Like, I drove like a maniac because you only got caught a few times. Let me see. My third is city interconnectivity. One thing I've noticed is I do bicycle a lot. I volunteer with Recycle Bicycle. And a kind of annoying thing is I live in Uptown, and that's up on the hill, and I can't get from here to there quickly on my bike because I'm not riding up State Street, because those cars are crazy. And a lot of those kids have to ride the sidewalks, but as we heard, the sidewalks aren't even all fixed. So you have kids who have to ride the sidewalks, and they could get ticketed because you can't ride a bike on the sidewalk, but I wouldn't have those kids in the road, but we're not giving them any real options. Same thing goes for pedestrians, as the one lady was saying, that they can't safely walk the streets. Like, it's hard to get from one part of the city to another part of the city, because crossing Cameron is at times a death trap, crossing Forster, as we know, is at times a death trap, crossing State. The Greenbelt's nice. The Greenbelt gives us a lot of opportunities, but for me to have to get to Reservoir Park by taking the super long way around isn't conducive to me going to work or going up to the Giant in Klein Village or any of that kind of stuff. So, I mean, they talked about it, but I think that's the thing to get on first. Having more transit would be great in the long term, but in the short term, we need ways for people to get around the city quickly and safely, not in vehicles, and sharrows don't work. I mean, they're nice that they're there now. They never were, but cars don't listen to the little sharrows. And then my last concern is there's a lot of development going on, and there's a lot in the plan that would help to encourage and expand development, and I am for development. I am for seeing the city get better. However, there is the looming question of gentrification, and I know that in like Mount Airy in Philadelphia, they took protections against gentrification, while the rest of Philly is becoming incredibly affluent and just forcing people out. That's one small area was able to act before it happened. And oh, is it? Yes. Right on. But like, this is the thing we have to do now. You can't do this when the businesses have come in, when they bought up the whole properties, when investment firms have bought up neighborhoods. Like, then it's too late. They own it. It's theirs. We have to do this now. We have to do this now when the building's happening. We should have done it, 40 years ago. But we have to do it now when the federal money's coming in and we're looking to improve. We want to make sure we're not forcing out the small businesses that, have been here for a while or just opening that people can afford and replace them with Starbucks and high-end everything, which I guess are nice, but we can't all afford Whole Foods. I mean, and the people who move in to work at the courthouse probably can, and it displaces people. So I think while we're growing and becoming better, we need to make very sure that we're taking care of the people who live here and not just inviting people to move in at the expense of everyone else. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. If I could just address a couple of things that you mentioned. We have added 7 non-uniform community service aides to our city, and we would look to expand that. This is a pilot program this year, so it's developing it and seeing how it goes. And then we will look to add more of those possibly in the next budget. So that is one thing addressing what you said. Something else you said was about the traffic cameras being able to ticket around the city. Unfortunately, that's something that the state law does not allow us to do. State law doesn't allow a city of our size, so Philadelphia can do it because they're a first-class city, but a third-class city, we're not allowed to do it, which is having traffic cameras do the ticketing. An officer actually has to do the ticketing. We can't even use speed radar guns with the ticketing process. We have to either tail the car or set up a speed trap, which usually takes about 8 officers to do that at a checkpoint. So it just takes way too much manpower in order to do that.
Thank you. We'll wait until we just finish the list, then we can do follow-ups. All right, next we have Pamela Parson.
Good evening, folks. I have to say that looking at this plan and knowing what I know about Harrisburg and how long it took to get to this, the fact that we're getting millions of dollars in ARP money scares the crap out of me, because I don't trust on how you're going to spend it based on looking backward. And so since this is a holistic plan, I'd like to look at it in kind of a holistic way. You have the core values, and then you have the chapters. And when you want someone to make a comment, like on your paper, you have it addressed to a particular chapter. But the thing is, they all fit together. So you have to look at, like when you're talking about your, Harrisburg is a city of water and trees. Yeah, it is. But, and you talk about restoration of native habitat, but then you also talk about development, and you also talk about having more parks. Do you realize that some of those things are cross purposes and don't fit well together? Native habitat, well, one of the things that's going to do is that's going to bring wildlife into the city. There's a lot that are already here. We have deer, we have coyote, we have possum, skunk, yes, we have had bear in Wildwood Park. And if people don't know how to interact or not interact with those, then that creates a problem. There were 2 deer hit on State Street just in the last few days. There was somebody talking about baby skunks. This is all on Facebook, but I know where I live. I have skunks, I have raccoons, I have possums, and they're not bad. But if people are not educated in how to interact with them, that creates a problem. So I'd like to run through this quick and make a couple comments. When you're talking about land use and community facilities, and it was mentioned that one of the key issues is public health campuses and that they increase neighborhood reinvestment. But I'd like to point out that based upon a lot of other communities, if you look at Philadelphia, if you look at Pittsburgh, that reinvestment from healthcare facilities has not been in the best interest of the folks who already live in that neighborhood. We have UPMC, which did, excuse my language, shit during COVID to provide any kind of testing or access for people who live in the city who did not have access to a car. And we do not hold them accountable as a city. So if we're going to increase the number of health facilities that come into the city, then we need to also understand and hold them accountable to actually provide services to people who live in this city, particularly people who are poor and black and brown. And then we talk about convenient access to healthcare and to medical facilities. And then that relates to talking about mobility and access. It's already been mentioned about CAT. CAT bus system was designed for commuters. It is not designed for the people who live here. So we've talked about that, but the thing is, there is no one on the CAT board who actually rides CAT. So when you're talking about how to change that, that's something that's really important that the city needs to focus on. There are people who get stranded when they go shopping because CAT suddenly cancels a route. There's this new regional transportation board, and I know that the city has appointed people to that. Do they ride CAT or any of the transportation systems that they're going to be overseeing? Not that I know of, so right there is something that the city can do. You talk about households. We all know that there are households that spend more than 30% of their income on housing. Yet you have a goal that talks about 50% of housing ownership. Like, how are you going to make that work? Especially when you look at the numbers that is used for people to qualify, the income levels, and then you translate that into what is your hourly wage that you make. If you make less than $15 an hour, you can't even afford many of what is currently proposed by developers as a affordable rent. So one of the things that maybe the city could look at, and you're not going to like this, is have a minimum wage. That in the city, you have to pay $15 an hour minimum wage. If you want people to be able to afford the housing that you are currently attracting. Limited bicycle facilities, that's been addressed. But I live on the hill. I never ride my bike anymore because I don't feel safe riding it from where I live on Holly Street to downtown. So basically, at the moment, all of your bike lanes and plans are mostly for white people because that's who's getting it. And the same thing with your housing and not having a mandatory set aside, 10%, 15%, whatever you want, but for me, the bigger is better. If you want to develop in the city, you must have affordable housing units. There are large cities that do it. And we learned yesterday that if you just ask, would you participate in this program, developers are going to say, no. So what do you want? I mean, you say that you want affordable housing, but you don't do what is necessary to create it. And these are hard things. And some developers might turn away But that's not the worst thing that happens. And that means that somebody else will come. And you'll get better. And so when I look at open space, that's another part of this. When I look at open space, again, like I said earlier, you need to balance that with thinking about where and what you're going to build. Because we are in climate change, and we have decreasing native habitats. And if you're simply relying on the federal flood maps, 65% of those are wrong. And they're wrong because they're based on historical floods and not because they're looking forward. They do not take into consideration increased development, increased urbanization, and increased rainfall. And Harrisburg is smack in the middle of a section of the city where downpours have increased by more than 40% in the last 10 years. And that's not going to go down, that's going to go up. So that's an issue not only for your stormwater, but it's also an issue when you're thinking about where and what you're going to build. And when you enhance riverfront as a destination, you need to remember that all those people walking on where those trees are, that's hard on those trees. So it can be a trade-off. And some of those trees in riverfront are going to die because they're being loved to death. So there again is a balance. When you think about Harrisburg as a destination, City Island, you know, the deed says that City Island must be public land. And a lot of it, you have to pay a fee. And now we have someone who's going to do a summer thing, a little beach club. And that should be free for everyone. And I should also mention that that is the person from who we've hired at the firm who does is our lobbyist. And they're getting a lot of bennies right now. And so when you talk about developing natural space for habitat diversity and all of those types of things, that may mean that you have to make some really hard choices. And you may have to decide, do you want habitat diversity, or do you want places where people can be walking all the time? Do you want habitat diversity, or do you want a place for dirt bike riders? Because they can't share things. Just a couple other quick things that I'll mention. We talked about splash pads. Splash pads are not a replacement for swimming pools. Black people drown at higher rates than white people because they don't learn how to swim, because they don't have access. So every time you take away a pool, you are adding that. Yes, we need our pools. Trees are very important in an urban environment, but it needs to be the right tree for the right place. And we have a lot of trees that were not native that we planted in this city, some of them 100 years ago. Now we have to make the hard choices to deal with some of those and replace them. One of the things we do is we take down trees, but we don't replace them. And that needs to be shared between the property owner and the city. And when we talk about this, when I was talking about habitat diversity and that type of thing, and you're talking about things that you need for teens, one of the things to think about is how can we take young people and have them work on things like habitat diversity, understanding animals, educating their younger younger people coming up on, you want to take your bird feeder down at night because that might mean that bears come in, or that you get a lot of raccoons underneath there at night. Those are sorts of things that we can use our young people to do. And sometimes we just have to think outside the box. But the one thing that I would say is what I heard tonight is a lot of people saying, hey, you didn't listen to me before. I asked for this, and I asked for this, and I asked for this, and I didn't get it. As a city, we need to make sure that we enforce whatever ordinance or zoning we have across the board, whether it's in Bellevue Park or out on the south side, whether it's in Midtown or on Holly Street. It needs to be the same. And we all know that it doesn't work that way. And we talk about how we want diversity in housing as well, but right now, the way developers are coming in, that's not what we're getting. So we might as well be honest and say, yeah, we're going to put white people and wealthy people over there, and everybody else is over here. Because right now, that's our approach. It's not what I know that's not what you're saying, but that's what we get. And when we talk about, when we talk about taxing authority, and I know the city has limited money, but that's because the city made bad choices before. And it isn't all of you sitting here, but those were bad choices that were made. We could have gone into bankruptcy, but we chose to sell off all our assets. So don't be blaming churches and nonprofits for the problem that we're in, which is not what was said in that way, but that was kind of, we can't ask them for money, or we can't ask them for money. I mean, the burden of money and revenue for this city is on the backs of the taxpayers. But again, we can look at that more carefully than we do now. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. Just a couple of follow-ups I just want to add. Okay. One thing as we navigate through the plan is going to be what's called the third-class city code. It's a little convoluted, but Pennsylvania has what I think is a very old system based off their Pennsylvania Constitution. It classifies cities into certain codes. Philadelphia is a first-class city, Pittsburgh and I think Scranton are second-class cities, and most other cities smaller than that, Lancaster, York, Harrisburg, Reading, are third-class. It limits or determines how you can garner revenue. So sometimes somebody will say, well, I saw Philadelphia raise their sales tax by 1%. They can do that because of their code. We cannot do that. And the reason I'm adding that is we cannot raise the $15 or to a minimum wage of $15. We do not have the authority to do that as a third-class city, unfortunately. Hopefully there are reforms that happen at the state level in order to do that. Maybe we can get a little bit creative. I know some small businesses, for example, are not big fans of the mercantile tax. Maybe we could do I don't know if we have the legal authority to do this, but maybe incentivize somehow a reduction in that to encourage them to raise the minimum wage to $15. But unfortunately, that's something we're going to continue to have to navigate is that third-class city code. The other thing in terms of the affordable housing legislation, I think Ms. Bowers will add off of it, is we just passed that. The developers that have come before us so far have not had a chance to review and use that just yet. They will be coming, and we will be asking them and encouraging them to adopt into the affordable housing plan. But the gentleman that was before us Tuesday did not have that opportunity just yet. The legislation had not passed. So I will give it to Ms. Bowers.
Thank you, Councilman Mattson, and thank you, Ms. Parsons, for your commentary. I just wanted to respond to your points relative to households and diversity in housing. As Councilman Mattson noted, in April, Council enacted an affordable housing legislative package. And the primary ordinance within the package established the affordable housing program within the city of Harrisburg. So you mentioned the city establishing a parameter percentage. Our percentage is 20%. 20% for developers. And that is actually larger than most municipalities within the area. Lancaster, who is very successful in this effort, their standard is 5%. So we're well above our neighboring municipalities. I don't think that 20% is too much in reference to last night's developer, where there are 16 units, 3 would have been deemed affordable if the developer was interested in participating in the program. It is mandated, however, as you know, with anything, we can't make anyone do anything. However, it is strongly encouraged, and I think it will assist us in not only retaining residents who are in the low to moderate income levels per HUD, but it will also assist us in creating that diversity in housing that we're looking for by retaining such residents. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Next, we have, I know her as Winnie O, but Winnie Othello. Yeah, I never heard your last name before.
Okay. Hey, family. My name is Winnie O, for those of you who know me. How you doing? Thank you so much for the opportunity to meet with the people. Personally, I am very appreciative of that because obviously it seems like folks had a lot of concerns that were actually ongoing. And I think first and foremost, I would suggest that perhaps having a more consistent mechanism for outreach and communication with the community so that they know that, hey, first of all, there's meetings every 2 weeks online on Zoom. If you're unfamiliar on how to use Zoom, please contact them and get assistance on that because those meetings are so important. They are passing bills. They're passing the budget. Thank you for noting that in terms of the budget coming up at the end of this year. Last time we saw that it was not tied to the comp plan or any element of it really directly. And I'm glad that we're taking that into consideration this time around. And the implication seems to be that the comp plan would be approved by the next budget. Is that the implication here?
That is the goal. For me as community economic, I cannot speak for my colleagues, but I would encourage us to pass it before our next budget.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that because that seemed to have been the implication. Okay, I have quite a list here, so I'm going to try to be quick with it. Okay. 1, I will start right off the bat. The quarterly police report. Where are we with that? Because to my understanding, right, the city ordinance requires that there should be a quarterly report to city council. And who is, I believe as part of the code, it says the chief of police or designate shall compile it, quarterly. When was the last time you received that quarterly police report? Are there any penalties for not complying with that ordinance requirement? And if it's missed, then do they have to provide information from that last report that was submitted all the way to that new termination point? That's my question with regards to the quarterly report. I haven't really seen or heard anything about that. I'll start there.
I'll start with that. So the police department said they sent it to the legal department. The legal department said they sent it back to the police department because they need a release.
When was this exactly? When did they submit this?
I do not have the date off the top of my head.
Okay, when was the last report?
I can get that information to you.
When was the last report submitted that you're aware of?
The last report that was submitted publicly, it's been about a year or so.
Okay, and FYI, these are supposed to be quarterly reports. That means if it's been over a year, they have 4 missing quarterly reports. Step 1, okay? Let's acknowledge that. And it seems like there's been some back and forth on the legal side of things. Do you have a clarification as to why it was returned by the legal team?
From what I understand, there was some sort of clearance or release that was needed.
I think both myself as well as the community would like some follow-up on that. I know you don't have to do it right now. You may not have that information.
I can't follow up on it at the very moment because the police aren't here. And then I'd also like to keep the focus on the comprehensive plan a little.
No, but excuse me, sis. Councilwoman.
I'm not trying to debate. Please do not take it as that. I'm just saying
I'm not debating you.
I want to make for sure that is kind of the focus of the meeting. Understand that the police. Please understand, I will follow up on that. I don't have the information at this time.
Yes, that's why I said it's okay if you don't right now.
I will communicate the information as soon as I get it.
Correct.
I can follow up with you directly as well as I'll follow up at the city, I'll follow up at the city council meetings.
No, you don't have to respond to me directly. If anything, I'm asking as the person standing in the gap for the city at this moment. Because look at how many people are here. There's so many other people who are not able to be here for various reasons. And I just want to make sure that we are standing in the gap for those who are unable to make these meetings. Because let's be honest, a lot of people still don't know about that even the comprehensive plan even exists. Step one, people still don't know where to get it, how to read it. like, do we have physical copies available for people throughout the city? I'm not sure about that. And where, but the issue is that if it is available, people don't know how to get to them. That's my issue. If it is available, people are not sure where to get them. So again, my point here is just making sure that we have better communication with the community in terms of letting them know, A, how to get their concerns to you more quickly so that they don't have to wait years or a year or plus to get to this point and get heard. And I think the biweekly or the city council meetings, I think, are a great way to do it. And reminding people that the public comment email is available, I think that'll be really helpful. But moving forward, I really do want to clarify, however, that policing in this community is absolutely tied to the comprehensive plan, because we cannot move forward in these silos that perpetuate systems of inefficiency in this city, especially when we're talking about policing, right? Because we keep hearing about this community policing, which to me, it's an oxymoron. If the policing system is rooted in slave catching, let's start there. We cannot talk about, that has nothing to do with the comp plan, when literally the comp plan is technically the business plan for this city. And aren't the police being paid by tax dollars from this city? Last I checked, okay? They are public servants being paid by our tax dollars to implement approved legislations, ordinances, and so forth in this city that technically ought to be in accordance with the comprehensive plan that we're going to be funding with our tax dollars. There's money, and at the end of the day, all I'm trying to say is we show what we care about and who we care about in this city by what we fund. When we say, show me the money, follow the money, that's what shows us what people care about. Okay, so I'll just touch on these points quickly. So policing was really a big issue for me in terms of understanding how do we maintain order and increase better organization beyond armed law enforcement. I think, and other people have mentioned it, and so I'm just trying to take it high level. How do we rethink community order and organization beyond armed law enforcement? And then, again, that goes then back to Vision Zero, sir, okay? I've submitted questions before in terms of how then do we re-envision, particularly in this city, because I understand we don't have jurisdiction over other people beyond the city ordinances or the city's purview. How do we then connect Vision Zero, right? Understanding that if the purpose of Vision Zero is to have better, safer streets, how do we ensure that includes not just crash incidents? Because our streets and the safety upon, for those who navigate these streets has to include incidents that are not just crash-based. People are dying on these streets beyond just crash incidents. So I would hope that maybe you could take that back and look at how then do we reimagine and reconfigure and implementing that in terms of the comp plan. That's the other thing. Okay, and we've already talked about the budget and how that's gonna be. Also, then where do the municipal plans come in with that? There's supposed to be municipal plans once the general plan is implemented. Is there an approach for that? Is there an idea? You don't have to answer right now, but we would like to have some response sooner rather than later. I would like to also request, please include embedded links for the various projects that will be coming through, and also for city council meeting agendas. To me, they're very light. They don't really give you enough, especially if you will not be able to make that particular meeting. And also trying to go through watching an hour and a half, 2 hours. Not everybody has that. So are you going to be doing summaries or at least providing a bullet points? Because I know some people have been asking for that. I typically watch, or I rewatch them. But for other people, again, if they want to be, engaged, because that's what we really want, right? We keep on hearing you guys want folks to be civically engaged. That's what we want, and that's what I want for all of us, right? Whether you have a position or not. So making it easier, removing these obstacles to civic engagement, And please understand, I'm not saying this personally to any of you. I'm just saying, as a community, how do we better advocate for one another, to one another? And really, how can we be more intentional in the way that we plan for, number one, in the way we plan, design, and implement both physical and non-physical infrastructure? Now, whether that's our roads, our empty buildings, these pothole issues, that sight distance thing that people keep talking about, really asking about, right? Understanding that it's difficult to navigate intersections. If it's a sight distance issue, whether it's impeded by an illegally or unlawfully parked vehicle or a tree or whatever, do we currently have a mapping system that tracks this in the city? That's an app idea if it's not happening, because I know we were talking about apps earlier. So yeah, and also understanding that perhaps teleworking could be a solution, and really championing that in how we reduce traffic in the city, right, or traffic flow, or impact to the roads, both city and state roads. And understanding that that does tie in again back to the mental and physical and quality of health in the city for various people. Also, can we encourage more collaboration through our departments? Because I believe one or two people mentioned how we need to get our youth more involved, whether it's, programs, existing programs. There's so many nonprofits that are doing programs for the kids, YPOC included, Harrisburg Comprehensive Plan Community Working Group included, right? We're starting to do these initiatives that we want our young folks to come find something to do intentionally. Sister Rafika and the community gardens, there are people doing stuff. How do we better support both financially and organizationally and systemically? How do we better support them and remove those barriers to true integration into the community and into this plan, really, in every level of accountability? And speaking of accountability, one of me and my team's biggest concern from the last iteration that it seems the community had okayed, that was canceled, rather shut down by the incumbent mayor, and which is why we currently now have this plan. The community had said okay to it. Why? Because it may have seemed aspirational and lofty in what they wanted to do, but it had better metrics of accountability. This current plan lacks that, and I really hope that we will bridge that gap in terms of metrics, clear metrics of accountability, from goal to objective to how we implement it. That's one of my biggest concerns. And also, really, I'm just reiterating this for the other people who said this. We need to stop looking to outside entities to come and save us, when the reality is, honestly, they more often than not just come to scavenge upon the manifestations of communal trauma in this city that are due to systemic and structural racism and oppression from decades and decades of improper policing and policy implementation. I really want us to get that, because we cannot talk about economic development, residential development, food apartheid that goes on in this city. We cannot talk about that without talking about age gentrification, but really systemic oppression. Systemic oppression of intentionally marginalized communities that are consistently underrepresented, misrepresented, and unrepresented. And just because we happen to have people who fit that diversity quota oftentimes, I want us to move beyond that performative diversity and really have true equitable inclusion. I really want that for us. We need true equitable inclusion from the top down, all the way to our Congress people and everyone above that. Because again, like I said, I'm not calling you guys out personally. I am calling out the systems of inefficiencies that exist within this city. I as a resident of this city, I want better not only for my neighborhood, but for those who happen to live in the other parts of the neighborhoods that are also affected by similar issues. Because there are residents in this city who where they are, they're like, there's nothing wrong with Harrisburg. It's great, it's perfect. Where there are people who are like, yo, I can't even get safely from my car to my house. And so then that goes back to the question of, so then where do we begin to design for safety? Right? Whether we're talking street harassment, transit harassment, workplace harassment, sexual harassment, sexual violence, domestic abuse and domestic violence. These are all issues that are intertwined in what we do and how we do what we do. as professionals, as individuals, because people like to say, oh, we don't talk about that as professionals. But all these things affect how we do what we do every day. Whether we're at work, we're at home, we're taking care of the family, these things matter. And if they don't matter to you, please check your heart. Because again, I'm tired of seeing folks coming to those city council meetings, right? And I'm like, I'm hearing them talk, and I'm like, sir, what is your why? What is your purpose? You're not doing us any favors. They're not doing us favors by coming and doing these projects for us. They're not doing the community any favors, because you know what? The community has engineers. It has planners. It has architects. It has people who care and give a darn about what's going on in this city. And I hope that that is reflected in all those people who are coming in to do work, to get money, to get grants so that they can look good on their numbers. I really want us to be better on that end. And I will close with this. When it comes to our schooling districts, I really need us to be mindful of that food apartheid situation. Because how can we expect students to learn in an environment that A, does not prioritize who they are, or where they come from, or where they're going? If they don't see themselves in what that projection of what their potential outlook can be, if they don't see that the mountain can be moved, how do we expect them to stay invested in what we're trying to tell them? I need our students and our young folks to see themselves in us. That's why I advocate so hard. Because I'm simply advocating for the little girl in me who was rambunctious and asked too many questions and asked constantly, well, how do we make this better? I'm advocating for her who happens to be in Harrisburg school districts or anywhere else in the city. I need her and I need that boy to know that it's okay to wear a freaking hoodie and get home safely. It is okay to walk from your house to your school and back and not worry about getting shot or dying somewhere along the way, not just from stray bullets, but also from intended bullets for people who are supposed to protect and serve you in this city. That's a freaking reality that also me as a freaking engineer, I am so mad that we don't talk enough about that. And when you talk about, like law enforcement has to, because of the class of city we are, no. Right now, folks in research boards are looking into research statements to determine how they're supposed to police you. And oftentimes, we don't get to be at those decision-making tables. It takes one of me to sit there and ask, have you considered equitable inclusion in this? Have you considered how those who are affected and impacted by policing, have you considered how they feel? Because we're often talking about, okay, how do we make policing safer? How do we ensure that they're able to continue their work as vigorously as they do? Oh yeah, it's been a tough year and a half. But for some people, it's been way longer than that. So, all that to say, equitable inclusion, please provide better access for participation from your community. And know that we are here to support. And the community, we are the top of the org chart. I'll keep saying that. Y'all know this. We know this. The community residents are the top of the organizational chart in the city. And I need us to act like it. Thank you.
Thank you for that. All right, our last constituent, Ms. Rafiqa Muhammad.
Thank you, and I honor that y'all are being here listening to us. I just have a few things to say. I don't want to be all over the place, but everything that everybody has said is part of the comprehensive plan. Depends if you plug it in. You got a lot to plug in. The question I want to know is, I was part of comprehensive plan meetings a couple years ago. What happened to all that information? We had one of them here. Where is that information? Because it seems like some of that information just got pushed to the side for somebody else's plan. I know you probably heard the little coin, whose plan is it? I came up with that because it's our plan. It's the city's plan. It doesn't belong to anyone but us. We gave y'all the information. What happened to the information? Another thing I want to bring up is that I think that'll resolve a lot of problems if we get more people. Yes, our council people do live in our city, and I appreciate you for that. But also the people that run the departments don't. How can you work for a city and you got to GPS your way around a city? We never see these people. They don't even know if they got bricks over here or cement over there. That's disgusting, and I'm gonna use that word, disgusting. I'm from here, born and raised. I drove down Front Street the other day and was in tears. I'm tired of seeing my city look the way that it looks. I'm old enough to know a lot of things, and I'm young enough to know some things as well. We're in trouble. I don't care how you twist it around, how you look at it. Some people are just not doing their jobs, and I'm gonna also say some people don't care because they don't live here. When you don't live in a community, you care less about what happens in that community. And a lot of our directors do not live here. So that's number one. I hear all about the third-class city, and aren't we getting ready to come out of Act 47? What will happen to the plan when we do come out of Act 47? Can things be changed? Can we do some things? Because as I'm listening, I don't say a lot, but I do a lot. And I like doing. I reach out to all of y'all with all kind of issues. I voted for a lot of y'all. There was a time I didn't do that process, but I understand that process because I play chess. It's nothing but a high-level chess game. So I play chess right along with you. Right now, I think the residents are winning because you're not listening to us. So we'll have to go back to the voting booth again. That's what we'll have to do as residents. I understand how the structure of this city works because I have to give a lot of my mentorship also to the Honorable Stephen R. Reed, bless his soul. He did some good things, and yes, he did some bad things. And yes, he put us in a situation, and a lot of us get that. But some things he did work. Some things were effective. Our city wasn't filthy like this. People lived in a city that was under the Reed administration. I'm going to also talk about two things I haven't heard too much anyone talk about this evening is about our disabled citizens. Seems like we just run them under the rug. We forget about them. Most of your city is disabled, elderly. I'm a senior citizen too. Some of us might not look like it, but we're seniors. We're impacted here. I can't walk my sidewalks and my streets. Let's talk about the trees. It's an issue here. It's a safety issue. It's a public issue. It's an environmental issue. We haven't talked about environment neither. We're getting ready to have mudslides in our city. We have sinkholes that are getting ready to open up in our city, and we can't do it all. But nobody's paying attention. I'm going to send each and every one of you the Comprehensive Climate Change Plan, what Ms. Pam talked about. We better get ready, Harrisburg. And Councilman Westburn, you probably know a lot of this because of where you work. We're in danger. We're going to have rain on top of rain. We're going to have snow on top of snow. And guess what? We are not prepared as residents and as a city. So that means we're going to have fatalities. I'm about prevention. I don't see this administration trying to do anything about prevention. It's all about what they can get, how they can get, how the people and their partners can get. Let's keep it real. Y'all know me. I'm coming at you with truth. I have no need to lie to any of y'all about anything, but I tell you one thing, I'm sick and tired of what I see. I'm sick and tired of what I hear. I'm sick and tired of hearing what my neighbors and residents complain of the same old things. And each and every one of y'all can make a difference. And y'all know I'm not coming at you personally. I'm coming at what your job is because I can separate that personal stuff and focus on what you're supposed to do. I don't care if we're here at 12 o'clock tonight. That's our business. We're in charge. Y'all need to listen to us and implement what we're asking you to do. Trees, I'm going to go back to that. And our trash is an issue. We have a serious dumping problem. Y'all know people come in here and dump. Why isn't it not being enforced? Where is that in the plan? How are we going to handle that? That's a big, serious issue and problem. We don't know what they're dumping in our streets, alleys, vacant lots, none of that. We have a lot of private developers that own vacant lots. They're trashed. This woman here, when she was running for council, unfortunately, cleaning up somebody's vacant lot. That belongs to someone. Why aren't we handling that? Why are we not looking at our infrastructure, our green infrastructure? Nobody asked us about no splash pads. That sounds like what white kids do. Black kids don't want no splash pads. We want pools. We need to learn how to swim. There's a lot of things that we want and need. And I'm going to tell you, I remember we shared that with y'all. I don't see it in this plan. So I've been on both sides of the fence of this. I'm disappointed in what y'all are trying to rush through. It's not about rushing through this. I don't care if we work on this until next year. This is what we want. And we need y'all to understand and listen to what we want. We have a lot of properties that are getting ready to collapse. How come that director's not, and y'all are not pushing him to take those down? How is that in the plan? Because I'm living next door to a house where he just told me, well, we'll just hear a big boom. I'm like, really? Your director said that, of codes. This is what I'm talking about. We need people that live in this city, understands this city, cares about this city, cares about how it looks, how it smells, everything. We don't have that. We should not be having an 89-year-old woman being harassed to take her tree down when she follows and fits under monies that we put aside for residents to get their trees taken down that fit the criteria. But because people don't live here, they don't know no better, so they can't do any better. So my whole thing is to y'all is that I am begging y'all, and I shouldn't have to do that, but I am, because I love you, because I know each and every one of y'all, and I know you're doing your best. But we got to do better. And if the administration is the hold up, they got to go. See, I did do some research. We can impeach our mayors here. We can impeach. I know it's a process, too. But guess what? It can happen. So residents need to start taking those kind of steps when our elected officials don't want to do what we need them to do. That's the step that I'm ready to do. That needs to be in the plan as well. Okay, how do we handle our directors? How do we handle our administrators? How do we handle our mayors? How do we handle our council people? If you're not doing what the residents want you to do, how do we get you out of here? Because that's where I'm at right now. In my senior age, my last few years on this planet and living in this city, I want to live in peace. I'm tired of the gunfire as well. I live on 7th Street. Everybody knows what's going on in Jefferson and McClay. Been talking about it. I'm sick of hearing the gunfire. Sometimes I think I'm in a war. Why do we have to live like this? I'm sick of hearing, well, we can't do this and we can. Yes, you can. Use your power because you have it. That's what we're here for. We voted for y'all. If you got a problem, you come to us. Then we back you to make it work. The administration don't mean nothing to us. Y'all do. We voted for y'all as well. So I'm telling you, I'm here to back you. You got a problem? Reach out. We petition. We can do all kinds of things to make things work. I need y'all to use y'all power. How is that fitting in the plan? I mean, these are things that need to be in there. How do we do these things? Because if that's a business plan, then we need to have succession. We need to know how to get rid and eliminate. We need to know how to improve. We need to know how to implement. But first of all, nobody's listening to us because some of that stuff in there, we didn't ask for. Not at all. We have issues with our water. We have issues with our trees. We have issues with our trash. I keep bringing that up because those are serious main issues that lead into everything else that everybody talked about. I don't want no bike lanes, for real. I don't want 2nd Street to be, we're going to have death on 2nd Street when y'all make those arrangements. We're going to have death on State Street. You think it's bad now? Wait till y'all do that. We don't want that. We've been telling y'all we don't want that. When are you going to listen to the residents? Seriously. That's where my heart is. When are y'all really going to listen? Councilman Madison, don't rush this plan. Don't let nobody take you there. Don't let nobody rush you there. Other council people, please don't let nobody rush you into this plan. Listen to what your constituents are asking you. Because we're tired of being on a bended knee saying, please. Some of us are ready to take some serious action, okay? And we shouldn't have to do that as residents. I appreciate each and every one of y'all for what you do. I do, even the ones that don't do anything. Because there's some that just don't do anything. And we all know that. That's why they're laughing. We shouldn't have to call and beg to get services for this city. People work for us. We don't work for y'all. Y'all work for us. So we need to get that mindset, and that needs to be in that plan. Part 1, paragraph 1, page 1. Who's in charge? That's all I have to say. I'm going to stick around because I got some things I want to talk to y'all on a separate issue that doesn't need to be on the mic. But you need to, don't rush this plan. I don't care who says it. Give us more of an opportunity to give you feedback. Because like Ms. Winnie says, a lot of us don't even know the plan exists. Our senior citizens are disabled, are hurting in this community. And I just feel that no one's paying attention to them at all because they can't get here. Some people can't access. The woman that's 89 years old cannot, she doesn't want to be on a computer. She doesn't even know how to use a computer. She's not interested in these. But a good old-fashioned knock on a door, a good old-fashioned phone call, but you can send warning letters and threatening letters for something that she can't do that's out of her control. These are the things that we all heard here talking about. Y'all say, well, we need to stick to the plan. That is the plan. We're telling you what needs to be in the plan. There's no separation. This is a holistic approach. Every time you separate stuff out, that's where the problem starts. That's why we can't get nothing done. Lastly, communication sucks. That's the only way I can say it. There is none. Y'all don't communicate. Just like the councilwoman here said, well, it got sent back over here. And said, I know, because I'm dealing with that now. I don't have no movement now. Trying to work what I'm trying to do up in the park. I've been lied to for 1.5 years by the administration and some of your workers. And that is not acceptable. But they lied to not only me, but community, funders, etc. Because guess what? I'm not the right color skin to make it happen. I already know that. It's been said that. So when we talk about systematic racism, it's alive and well in this administration. And some of y'all know that. Some of the people that look like me, our projects have been to a grinding halt. Why? Why? But you got other organizations that don't look like me. They just moving right along and doing stuff. That's a problem. Because nobody's asking questions. You need to listen to your residents. You really do. Because we got cycles coming up again. And again. And again. Until we get it right, I'm going to be right there pushing those buttons and listening and paying attention. I'm not going anywhere. You almost lost me. I was ready to pack up. Never thought that I would leave my home. I ain't doing it. I'm staying right here. I'm going to be a thorn in y'all side till you get it right. Whether it's y'all or the next crew or the next, I don't care. You're going to listen to us. And we're going to make sure that you do. I appreciate your time. Thank you. Like I said, I love all you guys, but you got to listen to your constituency. Y'all have a good one.
Thank you for that. Okay, we are past the 2-hour mark at this point. I know some of you had some personal issues or constituent services. I'd like to give you some time to work with council members on that. So at this moment, I will just leave it for closing remarks. I just, again, want to thank everybody for coming out. I will let my colleagues or Mr. Knight, if he has any closing comments, or Ms. Merrick, do you have anything?
No, I would just like to thank everybody for coming out tonight and for the comments, for the input. It was obviously very heartfelt, and it came from a deep place of caring, and it came from a place of concern, and it came from struggling with a lot of these issues for a long time. And, I definitely heard that tonight. And, we'll do the best we can to work with City Council going forward on this to make sure that what we heard here tonight and what we've heard here before throughout this process makes its way into the document, so that it is something that the next time we do this, we're not hearing the same comments.
Yes, if there are any comments or questions you may have, let us know, and we will follow up and get you the answers.
No, I'm talking about like public, response, even the existing comments, because we have not seen that yet. So I know probably last time you gave a number of 10 comments. So for those who have submitted, whether it's the public comment or the comp plan mail resource account, we still need a response publicly back to the community so they know what is the cadence of concern being posed and how those things are going to be addressed and implemented in the plan. That's what people need.
Okay. I'll sidebar with you. I just want to make sure I fully understand your concern and question so I answer it correctly and address it.
Okay, yeah, because it's not about sending it back to the individual.
I understand. You want public comments essentially displayed in the response from city government in a way or format that everybody can read it, correct? Yeah, correct. Okay. All right. We can work on that. Thank you. Any other comments? Closing remarks?
I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank everyone for joining us tonight. We certainly, again, love seeing you in person and appreciate all of your commentary. Just wanted to remind everyone of next Wednesday's meeting at 6 o'clock at Italian Lake. Just another note for your schedules, for our city council schedule, just in case anyone needs a reminder. We will continue to meet virtually through the end of this month. Our final virtual meeting will be held on July 6th. At that time, we will go on our summer break until August 31st, where we will meet in person. So I'm hoping that everyone will remain engaged throughout the summer, and hopefully once we return in person on August 31st, everyone will join us in City Hall safely. That I'm not sure, but
Believe so. Yeah.
There's benches.
there.
There are currently benches there at the pavilion at Italian Lake. You may also want to bring a chair, but we'll talk with Public Works to see if that's something that's going to be provided, or but we may encourage you to bring a chair, since that space is limited and you just have the benches there. So you're encouraged to bring a chair if you can. But I'll also coordinate with Public Works and we can get a message out to the public about that as well. No, I think Councilwoman Bauer said it. Thank you all for coming out. Again, this is a process, right? This is, I still remember being a part of the BHBG meetings when I was not a member of council. I was a member of the Harrisburg, Capital Region Water / Harrisburg Authority. So, this has been a long time coming. We want to take all of your comments into consideration, and there's going to still have to be a process after we gather all this information for us to work with the Planning Commission, work with Director Knight, go through those comments, and then work to include them into this plan. So I don't want anyone to be under to think that this is being rushed. I mean, for folks that have been involved since the beginning, this has not been a rush process, and council got it back in February. We've had several meetings, and then we, even based upon the reception / non-reception of getting enough comments, we are encouraging, Councilman Madsen had additional meetings so that we can get more feedback. So we're taking all of this into consideration as we're moving forward.
All right, with that, thank you so much.
I'll just add one thing here. Since everybody else spoke, I should say something. But thank you all for coming out. Thank you to the Planning Commission. I've been a member of the Planning Commission as well throughout this comprehensive plan process. And just part of the process, it started out with BHBG. We started out with our first contractor. The original plan was written. That plan was then put out to the public in a draft form. We took comments on that. We had several public meetings on that down in City Hall. We then hired another contractor to revise the plan based on the comments that we've gotten. And then we had some more public sessions held virtually. So this has been a process. We've been trying to put it out there. We've had the physical forms available before COVID. We had them at our libraries, our school district, at several buildings to try to make sure it was available to the public. After COVID started, we did put it online for safety purposes and try to make sure everyone had access to it. We've been accepting public comments and having public forums. So this has been a process that we've tried to make sure is always available to the public. The very beginning of the process was a lot of community engagement with the BHBG website as well as community events. All of that information was gathered and kept and used as part of this process, and the public comments that we've been receiving have been incorporated into this, all the way down to creating an introduction chapter that is more of a summary so that people don't have to read the entire plan to find out anything about what's going on. So we have been really incorporating the public comments. We look forward to continuing to incorporate them. Once again, special thanks to the Planning Commission for the countless hours of reading through the plan 2 and 3 times over, line for line, word for word, to try to make sure everything is incorporated and correct. So this isn't a rushed process. If it takes longer, it will take longer. But this is also a living document. So what we end with is not what will be forever. It's a plan to start us in the process at every point. Every 2 or 3 years, we should be revising this. We should be continuing to listen to the input of the citizens of Harrisburg and continuing to develop this plan. I think COVID has taught us that 1 year can change everything. So we have to look at everything consistently and update it to where we're at. Getting more fiber optics networks available, higher speed internet available. These are things that now are like necessities that weren't seen as a necessity 2 years ago. So it's important for us to understand it's a living document, and we look to continue to revise it. So thank you again for coming out. I'll pass it back to Councilman Mattson.
Just want to thank the staff real quick and everybody again for coming out tonight, and we'll see you next week. Thank you.